the little dragon who makes his home in a shimmering cavern nestled high in the misty mountains of Sleepy Forest. You might also remember his brother and sister, Fera and Agney, and of course his loving parents, Mr. and Mrs. Flamas. They prefer to be called Auntie's wise old grandma and grandpa Flam. Now, Iggy isn't your ordinary dragon. He's completely one of a kind, with a magical party trick so special it has never been seen before, and likely never will. Again, instead of breathing fire, Iggy blows bubbles. There are quite a few perks to having bubbles come out of your mouth instead of flames, and Iggy has been slowly discovering them. For one thing, he never accidentally burns anything down, and when he gets a cough or a sneeze, he doesn't have to dash off to the river in a panic. Instead, from his snout float beautiful, glimmering bubbles, perfectly round and crystal clear, with little rainbows swirling inside. They drift gently across the sky, some waiting for someone to leap up and pop them with a satisfying pop, while others rise higher and higher until they seem to dance among the moon and stars themselves. But there is something about Iggy's unusual talent. There is both a blessing and a bit of a curse, because he's the only dragon in the world who blows bubbles instead of fire. He's incredibly easy to remember. That means everyone knows him, and Iggy can never get away with any mischief. So he always has to be on his very best behavior. Of course, being well behaved all the time can feel, well, rather dull. So when Fera and Agney burst into Iggy's room one evening, excitement lighting up their faces, and announced that they'd found a treasure map, Iggy didn't hesitate for a second. They asked if he wanted to join them on an adventure, and before he could even think, he blurted out, yes. He was tired of being the careful one, the voice of reason always pointing out what could go wrong, or how they might get in trouble, or that maybe they'd be better off staying home and playing ping. Not tonight. The map, as it turned out, came from a very peculiar shop called Hairy B. Dragons. It was run by the Theobald Alacia Stackery, a dragon who only opened his store when he felt like it, or when someone tempted him with a generous hunk of cheese to flip the sign from closed to open. Apparently, Fera had been chatting with Cuddle, who'd spoken with Prickles. And well, one thing led to another, and somehow they'd ended up with a map to the Temple of Donuts. The Temple of Donuts. Iggy read aloud, his eyes wide and his tongue darting across his lips. He imagined a magnificent temple built entirely out of golden, sugary donuts, walls of glazed dough, pillars of icing, and a sweet aroma filling the air. You see, dragons have two favorite kinds of food. The first, as you might guess, is anything hot and spicy, the sort of thing that makes their bellies rumble with fiery warmth. But the second might surprise you. It's donuts. They adore all kinds. Sugary ring donuts that sparkle in the light, tiny puffs of dough that melt in your mouth, and great big jam-filled ones that ooze with sticky red strawberry filling the moment you bite into them. If you ever happen to meet a dragon, remember tease. Offer them a donut, and you'll have a loyal friend for life. And so, the plan was made. The trio would set off first thing in the morning, just as the sun peeked over the horizon. It was the perfect idea, or at least, it would have been if only the weather had cooperated. but instead of a golden sunrise, the sky was thick with gray clouds and heavy rain. So rather than leaving at dawn, they didn't depart until just before lunch, trudging out into what could only be described as a very determined drizzle. Off to the park, they called down to Grandpa Flame, who was standing on the terrace of the cave, peering out through the mist. He cupped his claws around his mouth and called back, asking where on earth they thought they were going in such weather. All three young dragons simply shrugged their glowing wings, waved cheerfully to Grandpa Flame, and continued soaring through the rain without a second thought. "They're not going to the park?" Grandpa Flame muttered knowingly to Grandma Flame. She just smiled, patted the seat beside her, and said gently, "Sit down, dear. They'll be perfectly fine. Don't forget the pigeon trackers are in place." That reminder was enough to calm him. You see, pigeon trackers are exactly what they sound like, pigeons. The track. And since pigeons are everywhere, have you ever noticed that? They make the perfect secret agents. They blend effortlessly into the background, go unnoticed by everyone, and can still send updates back to base, usually too worried parents about how everything's going. Hidden in plain sight, they flutter and coo their way across the skies, keeping a close watch on little dragons' adventures. So off went Iggy, Fera, and Agney, squinting through the drizzle, flapping their wings every so often to shake off the water. And not far behind, off went the three pigeon trackers, their seed pouches tucked neatly away to keep them flying for as long and as far as the young dragons would go. Agney, ever the most organized of the trio, had already memorized the treasure map by heart. They followed the first river, then another, then veered left at the edge of a forest, and turned right again when they spotted a castle with 4 tall towers, each capped by a pointed hat-shaped roof. They flew for what felt like hours, so long that eventually the clouds ran out of rain, and the drizzle gave way to a vast desert that shimmered in hues of red and gold. The dunes rose and fell like the rolling waves of an ocean made of sand. In the far distance, a jagged line of rocky mountains broke the horizon. As they approached, they saw hundreds of cave mouths carved into the cliff's dark openings that dotted the stone like windows in a honeycomb. There must have been at least 100 caves on the first mountain alone. But Agney, having studied the map carefully, knew exactly where to go. Not this one. Not that one. Not that one either. "There!" he exclaimed, pointing ahead. The correct mountain had a peculiar chapit, looked rather like a giant camel, its twin humps stretching into the distance. And right in the middle of the second hump was the cave they were looking for. Fera and Iggy might not have been entirely convinced until they saw the little painted sign at the entrance. It had an arrow pointing inside and read, "This way gives to the Temple of Donut." Honestly, though, they didn't need the sign at all. They could smell the donuts from where they stood. The sugary, warm, delicious scent wafted through the air, making Iggy's mouth water until he accidentally let out a stream of glittering bubbles. The 3 young dragons disappeared into the cave's mouth, while the pigeon trackers landed neatly on the signpost outside. After a quick inspection, the pigeons confirmed there was only one way in and one way out. That settled it. They unpacked a small deck of cards, perched comfortably, and prepared to wait as long as necessary. Inside, Iggy, though the smallest and youngest of the group, took The tunnel was lit by a line of glowing lanterns set into the stone walls, flickering warmly as they walked. Whenever one of the lanterns dimmed or flickered out, Fera or Agney quickly gave it a puff of flame, and the light returned stronger than before. The path twisted and turned, sometimes widening into great archways, other times narrowing so tightly they had to crawl on their bellies. But the deeper they went, the stronger the smell of donuts became, urging them forward with every step. Soon, Iggy heard the faint sound of running water. They rounded a bend and came upon a sparkling underground stream, clear and bubbling as it cut through the tunnel floor. Now, you might think a stream would be no trouble for dragons after all. They can fly, but here's something you may not know. The very first rule every dragon learns, even before they can properly walk, is never, ever fly indoors. It's far too dangerous. There are ceilings to bump into, lamps to smash, curtains to tear, and worst of all, ceiling fans that tangle wings in a terrible mess. So, of course, none of the young dragons even considered flying over the stream. Instead, they began searching for a way across. It was Iggy who spotted something unusual. He carefully lifted one of the wall lanterns and tilted it this way and that, letting the light glimmer over the water's surface. That's when he saw a glowing green stone gleaming beneath the current, as though it were alive. It shimmered so brightly it almost looked transparent, as if you could peer right through it. I think I've found something, Iggy. Khalid, he handed the lantern to Fera, stepped back a few paces into the tunnel, and braced himself. 1 stride, 2 strides, 3 strides leap. Iggy gathered all his courage, stretched out his legs, and aimed straight for the glowing green stone. But the instant his feet touched it bowing, he was catapulted high into the air, arms flailing and tail spinning. He flew clumsily across the stream and landed on the far side with a heavy thud. "It's jelly," he shouted back, eyes wide with astonishment. "It's not a stone at all, it's a giant green jelly." And indeed, he was absolutely right, as Fera and Agney soon discovered when they too leaped forward, bounced off the wobbly jelly, and went tumbling after Iggy in a fit of laughter. "Right," said Iggy, determination sparkling in his eyes as he dusted himself off. "What's next?" He marched boldly ahead, leading the way down the tunnel, until it opened into an enormous cavern. Before them stretched a vast shimmering pool of golden yellow liquid, bubbling and steaming like a living thing. Iggy bent down and dipped a claw into it, and took a cautious sniff before daring a tiny taste. "Custard," he declared, his eyes lighting up. A whole lake of custard. From the towering ceiling above hung thick red ropes, except, as they soon discovered, they weren't ropes at all. They were giant strawberry shoelaces, soft and sticky, dangling all the way down from the heights, lit by rows of glowing lanterns. A clever set of steps and pulleys stood ready nearby. The 3 dragons took turns climbing the steps, grabbing hold of a strawberry shoelace and launching themselves out over the lake of custard. Each took a running start, flapping their wings in excitement as they swung across. Iggy gave a delighted squeal as he soared through the sweet-smelling air, clutching the sticky shoelace with all his strength. His tail skimmed the surface of the custard, sending a golden wave rippling behind him. He laughed so hard that rainbow-colored bubbles streamed from his mouth and nose, glimmering like tiny jewels in the lantern light. Their adventure continued deeper and deeper into the mountain. There were more challenges to face, each more delicious than the last. They paddled across a chocolate river using giant lollipops as oars and scaled sticky caramel walls that clung to their claws and tails. Every trial brought giggles, teamwork, and just a tiny bit of mess. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the grandest cavern of all, and the sight took their breath away. Tables upon tables were piled high with donuts, more than any dragon could ever dream of. The very walls of the cavern were carved with shelves, each brimming with donuts of every size, shape, and color imaginable. The three young dragons who had been so disciplined up until now, resisting every sugary temptation, could no longer hold back. With a joyful roar, they dove straight in. There were donuts so large and springy you could sit on them like chairs, and one so tiny you could pop 10 into your mouth at once. Some were giant ring donuts, big enough to fit around their middles, so they could float like rubber rings in a river of syrup that wound lazily around the cavern. There were donuts dusted with powdered sugar, others covered in rainbow sprinkles, and even some topped with chocolate chips, gummy bears, and bright jelly beans. Some were shaped like hearts and diamonds, while in one corner they found donuts crafted into perfect dragon shapes. Iggy picked up one of those dragon-shaped donuts and took a big bite only to yelp in surprise. The jam inside was blazing hot with chili spice. For a moment, it felt as though he were breathing real fire. His eyes watered furiously, and through his shimmering bubbles, he might have seen, if he'd been able to look closely enough, faint flicker of flame glowing within them. As he wiped his snout, Iggy's attention was caught by a donut that didn't quite look right. When he reached out to grab it, he realized it wasn't a donut at all. It was something embedded into the wall. Curious, he twisted it gently, turned it this way and that, and suddenly a hidden door slowly opened at the side of the cavern. All three dragons gasped. A glittering staircase spiraled upward, each step covered in gleaming jewels and diamonds that sparkled under the lanterns. Without hesitation, they began to climb round and round, higher and deeper into the very heart of the mountain. At the top, they discovered a table, and on that table sat a single plate of donuts. Though they had already eaten far more than any dragon should, something about these particular donuts made them stop in awe. These were no ordinary treats. These were special, the finest donuts that had ever been made. They glistened with a gentle golden sheen, the scent of cinnamon and cherries filling the air around them. Though they looked simple, each about the size of one of Iggy's usual bubbles, they shimmered with a quiet magic, brighter than the diamond stairs themselves. Without even realizing it, the three dragons reached out, each taking one donut in their claws, and then, in a single blissful minute, they devoured them all. The plate was now completely empty, not a crumb left behind. The three dragons lay sprawled out beside it, wings lazily fluttering as a warm, glowing happiness spread through them, a special kind of wonderful that made their scales shimmer softly in the golden light. As Iggy stretched and let out a satisfied sigh, something caught his eye. Lying just beside the table was a small envelope, neatly sealed and edged in gold. Curious, he reached out and picked it up. The words written across the front read, "To the finder of the grand donuts." He gave it a cautious sniff. It smelled faintly of cinnamon and cherries. just like the magical donuts they had devoured moments earlier. His heart gave a little flutter. This had to be connected. He tore the envelope open and carefully pulled out a letter. Clearing his throat, he began to read aloud. "Dear Donut Eater," he began, snorting a few bubbles from his nose as he tried to hold back a laugh. "You have discovered the finest donuts ever created. They are made from the sweetest cherries, grown on a single tree in a faraway land. The cinnamon used in them comes from the softest, most fragrant garden, found in another land far, far in the opposite direction. Bringing these two wonders together at the perfect time is no easy feat. Enjoy each bite, if you must, and cherish the flavor, for these donuts are made only once each year, when the moon is full and the world is ready." When Iggy finished reading, silence filled the cavern for a moment. Then Fera frowned thoughtfully. "How long do you think we took to eat those donuts?" she asked. "About a minute," Agney replied, glancing at the empty plate. "Right," said Iggy, blinking slowly. "So," continued Agney, "a year's worth of work, gone in a single minute. Finished, Fera." There was another long pause before Iggy finally muttered, "Whoops!" And then all three of them burst out laughing too, fiery streams of flame spiraling into the air and one glittering shower of bubbles filling the darkness above. Their laughter echoed through the cavern like music. That day, the three dragons learned a very important lesson. When something truly wonderful happens, you must take your time to enjoy it, and sometimes the most magical things come in unexpected forms, like a plate of donuts that taste oh so very, very delicious. "Same time next year?" Agney asked at last. "You didn't even have to ask," Iggy replied with a grin. So the three little dragons began their journey back down the winding, jewel-covered stairs. They passed through the door once more into the vast donut cavern, which quite miraculously had been completely restored. Every donut they had eaten was back in its place, fresh and glistening as ever. Even the ones that had been floating lazily in the syrup river were now neatly dried off and hung up, ready for the next visitors to discover. As the hidden door quietly closed behind them, Iggy tried to remember which donut had opened it, but no matter how hard he thought, he couldn't recall. "Oh well," he shrugged, "I've got a year to figure it out." And so the three young dragons retraced their steps, using giant lollipops to steer their boats back across the chocolate river, sliding down walls with the help of sticky caramels, swinging once more on strawberry shoelaces across the glowing custard lake, and bouncing cheerfully off the green jelly that quivered in the middle of the stream. One by one, they finally emerged into the sunlight outside the cave, hidden in the second hump of the camel-shaped mountain. The desert wind greeted them warmly as they stretched their wings, ready for the long flight home. Perched on the rocky ledge near the entrance sat three pigeons, still playing cards, looking as though they hadn't moved an inch. "Good evening," called Iggy politely. The pigeons gave a casual nod in return, cooing softly. "To most of us, one pigeon looks exactly like another, but none of the little dragons realized that these were the very same pigeon trackers who had followed them faithfully from their home high in the mountains of Sleepy Forest. If the three little dragons hadn't been quite so sleepy or quite so stuffed full of donuts, they might have noticed the three pigeons tidying up their card game and taking off after them. But at that moment, all they could think about was curling up in their warm, cozy beds. The desert sands glowed a deep red beneath the fading sun, and as the clouds drifted back into place, the dragons soared through the gentle rain. They flew past rivers and forests, over winding paths, until the familiar shape of their castle appeared, the one with 4 tall turrets standing proudly at each corner. Back through the forest they went, gliding past one river, then another, until at last they landed softly on the terrace outside their home. There sat Grandpa Flame, comfortably settled with a large umbrella in one claw and a well-worn book in the other. He peered over the top of his glasses, watching the 3 little dragons approach, their wings drooping with exhaustion. "Good day at the park?" he asked, his tone perfectly, even though the twinkle in his eye gave him away. "The best," said Iggy, puffing tiny bubbles from his nose. "Wonderful," added Fera, her wings glimmering faintly. "Magical," sighed Agney, smiling dreamily. The 3 dragons shuffled inside, far too tired to notice the 3 pigeon messengers perched nearby, whispering to Grandpa Flame that the young ones had discovered the legendary Temple of Donuts. The old dragon smiled knowingly. He remembered his own adventure there long ago and wondered whether his little explorers had managed to find the grand donuts resting on the jeweled altar at the very top. Iggy, being the youngest and smallest, could barely keep his eyes open. His claws scuffed along the floor as he trudged to the sink, where he brushed his teeth carefully, and down, up and down, though his eyelids did the same dance, drooping lower and lower. Somehow, he wriggled into his favorite red pajamas there, extra snugly parant, climbed into bed. With a sleepy sigh, he tucked his wings close and pulled the blankets up to his chin. His mother peeked in, storybook in hand, ready to read him a bedtime tale. But Iggy could only manage a faint, mumbled good night before drifting off. Smiling, she leaned down and kissed the tip of his tiny, bubble-blowing nose before tiptoeing out, quietly closing the door behind her. It was no surprise that Iggy's dreams carried him straight back to the Temple of Donuts. In his slumber, he floated down rivers of golden honey, drifted upon syrup streams, and swung through chocolate forests tangled with strawberry-laced vines. He dreamed of cinnamon gardens growing on one side of the world and cherry trees blossoming on the other, their fruits brought together beneath a glowing full moon to create the most perfect, mouth-watering donut ever made. In his dream, he flew beside Grandpa Flame through starlit skies, taking his time an hour for one bite, an entire day to finish a single donut. With every dreamy breath, iridescent bubbles floated from his mouth, swirling through the moonlight that spilled across his room. They shimmered and drifted out the open window, rising higher and higher until they sparkled among the stars. Now we drift toward the sweetest of dreams, the happiest, coziest dreams you could ever imagine. Your breathing slows, calm and easy as the soft weight of your blanket wraps you in safety and warmth. You are perfectly comfortable, snuggled in your little nest of peace. Let your mind wander over all the good things from today, all the smiles, the laughter, the lessons learned. Think of the people who made you happy, the moments that made your heart glow. Feel thankful for it all. You are safe. You are loved. You are cozy, warm, and deeply sleepy. Wonderful adventures await you in tomorrow's light, but for now, rest easy, little dreamer. The night is yours.